So you asked about how to earn interest and how to earn substantial interest. And so I want to kind of give you some insight or kind of a basic understanding of investments, because investments can be super, super, super confusing. So when we talk about investments, there are really two things that we talk about. We talk about the vehicle that makes our money grow, and we talk about the shelter that protects it. Now when it comes to vehicles, we've got slow vehicles and we've got fast vehicles. Now don't make fun of my drawing. I'm not an artist. Right? We've got slow vehicles and we've got fast vehicles. So a slow vehicle for your money, for example. So a hole in your backyard would be about the slowest vehicle you can imagine, right? So zero chance for risk, right? Unless your neighbor saw you bury it. So no matter what happens to the economy, is it going to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a hole in your backyard, right? Mm-hmm. So Depression era people that are really afraid. I had many clients for years that said, I've got money buried in my backyard and you're never going to get it. And they called it their Canada fund. So just in case everything went away. And some people bury gold, some people do silver. But that is about as secure as it gets, right? Mm-hmm. Zero risk as far as loss.
Yeah.
Unless it's stolen. Mm-hmm. But zero growth, right? Unless you're talking about mold. So it's whatever it is now, it's going to be the same thing in 10 years or less because of inflation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just above whole, we've got the bank, right? Where these days, you've got about the same risk, right? Mm-hmm. Banks are FDIC insured, right? Mm-hmm. So if you put your money in the bank, is it going to be there?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty safe.
Hopefully.
Yeah, pretty safe. But tell me about the growth potential.
Well, from our last video, there is potential, but not as much.
Yeah, it's very similar to the hole in the ground. What are your bank accounts getting right now?
Mine?
Yeah.
None.
Okay, so that's pretty average. So, obviously, hole in the ground and bank, aren't where we need to be. Then we've got a series of different accounts. We've got CDs, and you can get those at the bank. That's a CD stands for certificate of deposit.
Yeah.
Where you go down to the bank and you say, look, I want more interest. And you say, I'm willing to lock my money up for a period of time. So you can get a 6-month CD, you can get a 1-year CD, you can get a 2-year CD. And again, so certificate of deposit, you deposit your money, you get a guaranteed higher interest rate, and that money's locked up for a period of time. And then you've got a series of bonds. And bonds, a lot of time, are through the government. That's where you lock your money up for a longer period of time and trade for a higher interest rate. And then you've got a series of mutual funds, ranging from very conservative to very aggressive. And then you've got individual stock. And then you've got Las Vegas. Right? Because Las Vegas, you could fund your entire retirement on a quarter.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But you could also lose $100,000 or $1 million in an hour.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend Vegas for retirement planning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you are Ocean's 12 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I don't recommend a hole in the backyard. Mm-hmm. In fact, generally, if we're talking about a speedometer, bank CDs and bonds, generally speaking, are what we call preservation accounts. So they're vehicles that are accessible, and they have low interest rates. They have very, very, very low risk. But remember, we're in the last presentation, if you're getting 3-4%, you're barely keeping up with inflation. Mm-hmm. And so that traditionally is where these accounts have averaged historically. Bonds you can get a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. So that leaves us with these three vehicles. Now, generally speaking, stock is too volatile for most people to invest their assets in. It's very challenging to get diversified. And bonds, generally speaking, don't earn a high enough return to let people retire. Mm-hmm. So mutual funds, we've got a series of mutual funds that start with mostly bonds and end with mostly stock, and it allows us to get a diversified portfolio in place for a small amount of money. So for people that don't have giant amounts of money, mutual funds can be a great way to get started. It's a way to diversify your assets and earn a return. And if we're talking about like a speedometer, for example, we've got a bank that's going 5 miles an hour, and then we've got stock or Vegas that's going 175 miles an hour. So 5 miles an hour, do you ever get where you need to go?
No. Well, I mean, after a long time.
Maybe, if you live that long, right? And then 150 miles an hour, most people don't get where they need to go because they end up in the ditch.
Yeah.
So what we find is most people between 50 and 70 miles an hour we can find a pretty comfortable place to invest.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to select the vehicle. Now, so the vehicle that I used most commonly was mutual funds because it allowed people to get diversified. And we would figure out what people's risk tolerance was or volatility tolerance before we'd put them in the right vehicle. But these are the only vehicles really that make your money grow. You could throw real estate in there, but this is it. The terms that we recognize are the shelters. And the purpose of the shelter is to keep the rain out. And the rain is good old Uncle Sugar trying to get at our money. Okay, the only purpose of the shelter is to keep taxes off our money, to defer taxes or to change the tax bracket so that we can let our money grow without taxes. The shelters that we recognize, the most common one is a 401k. You ever heard that term?
Yeah.
Okay. What is a 401k?
It has something to do with retirement, like.
Right?
Very true. It does have something to do with retirement. This is an account, or rather it's a rule placed on an account. 401k is line number 401, section K of the federal tax code that says you can't touch this money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all of that is a rule placed on an account so it is not taxable on an annual basis. So teachers and coaches, nonprofits, churches, they have something called a 403b. You have any idea what a 403b might be?
I do not.
Well, this is line number 401 in the federal tax code.
Then that's
403b. It's line number 403 in the federal tax code, section B, that says you can't touch this account either. 403b is just like a 401k, but it's set up for nonprofits, teachers, coaches, nurses, nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
A lot of times churches are set up that way.
Yeah.
So these are the corporate structures, and there are a lot of them. We could talk at length about all of the different structures. The two that we want to focus on are the private ones that people can do without having a company set them up for them, and that's a traditional and a Roth IRA.
What's that?
That's a great question. You've never heard of either one?
Nope.
Okay. So, traditional IRA. So an IRA stands for individual retirement account.
Oh.
So if you don't have a corporation, but you still want to retire, you set up an individual retirement account. Now, a traditional IRA is very similar to a 401k in that it's tax deductible when you put it in and taxable when you take it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, let's just say you put $5,000 into a traditional IRA in a year. Okay? So that $5,000 is tax deductible, meaning if you make $10,000 in income and then you put $5,000 into your traditional IRA, your taxable income is $10,000 minus $5,000 or $5,000. So it reduces, this basically reduces your taxes paid that year. Or increases your refund.
Oh.
So it increases your tax refund because the government wants to incent you to put money away for your retirement. Why do you think that might be?
So that we don't have to use money from what is it, Social Security?
Yeah, so they don't have to support you when you're old. They're saying, look, you need to save because we don't have enough to pay for everybody.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you a tax break. Does that make sense? So what happens is this money grows. So that $5,000 grows and grows and grows and grows and grows over the course of your life. Right? In our first presentation, we showed $10,000 growing to some ridiculous amount of money. Let's just say that grows to $150,000. Okay? Now you get ready to retire. This, as you pull it out, is taxable. Just like a paycheck. Because they didn't tax it here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So as you pull this out, so let's just say you're going to pull out $1,000 a month for retirement. That $1,000 a month is taxed just like if you got it from an employer.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's not extra tax. There's no penalty tax. It's just income tax, just like it would have been taxed down here.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it doesn't take it away twice.
Correct. Because you get a deduction here, so you don't pay taxes on it here, and then you just pay taxes on it whenever you take it out.
Okay.
A Roth IRA is completely the opposite. And it's one of the coolest inventions, in my opinion, on the planet. So a Roth IRA is not tax deductible. It's after-tax money. So people say, you mean I pay taxes when I put it in? No. You paid taxes when you received it from your employer. So if you make $10,000 and you put $5,000 into your Roth IRA, you're still taxed on $10,000. You're taxed just normal, just like as if you wouldn't have invested it. So you receive the same refund that you would have received if you had not invested the money. So it's not deductible here. Now here's why you might want to do that though, because people ask all the time, well, if I can get a deduction and get a bigger refund, why wouldn't I do that? Because that $5,000 invested over the same time period, let's say it grows to the same $150,000. This amount of money, now because it was taxed here, is completely tax free, including all of the what?
All the money.
All the money, all the growth. So
Yeah.
how much money did you put into this?
That much.
5,000. How much are you taking out?
Ooh, that much.
And how much money did you pay taxes on?
That much.
5,000. So if you can pay taxes on 5,000 or 150,000, yeah,
That one.
seems like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Now there are certain circumstances where a traditional IRA can make a lot of sense. It puts people in a lower tax bracket, or they need a
Yeah.
deduction. But for most folks, especially early on, when you've got a lot of money to let, or a lot of time to let your money grow, a Roth IRA is a great situation. Now, the important piece here is to separate mentally the vehicle from the shelter. So, can you go down to the bank, do you think, and get a traditional IRA?
Probably not.
You can, believe it or not.
You can?
You can. But what's the vehicle?
The bank.
The bank. So how fast is it going to grow?
Not very fast.
Absolutely true. So you could literally put banking vehicles, put banking accounts inside of a Roth IRA. It would be a retirement account,
Yeah.
but your growth would be
Just what they
related to the
give
bank.
you.
Could you put CDs inside of a Roth IRA?
Probably.
Absolutely, you can. Can you put individual stock inside of a Roth IRA?
Well, at this point, I want to say yes because the other ones.
That's
yes.
absolutely true. So the important part, the purpose of the Roth IRA is what?
Retirement
Yes. But
Investment.
what does the Roth IRA do for you?
gives you money.
No.
Oh.
You've saved money. You gave
Yeah.
you money by saving it.
I
The
gave
Roth
you money.
IRA prevents that money
Tax,
from
yeah.
being
Tax.
taxed year after year after
Yeah.
year. It allows it to grow
Mhm.
tax deferred or tax free. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The purpose of the vehicle is to what?
That's like money. I'm trying to.
That makes your money grow.
Yeah.
The vehicle
growing
makes your money grow. The
Uh-huh.
shelter protects it from taxes.
Oh.
The vehicle does what?
Makes your money grow.
And the shelter.
Protects it from taxes.
So if you have the wrong vehicle, but the right shelter, what's going to happen?
You're not gonna. It's not gonna grow.
You're not going to reach
right.
your goals.
Yeah.
Now, if you have the right vehicle and the wrong shelter,
Well, it's not gonna be protected, and the taxes
perfect.
take it away.
Absolutely. So does that make sense? So it's really important to connect the right vehicle
Yeah.
with the right shelter
Yeah.
so that you can accomplish your goals and dreams.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Simplify it a little bit.
So,
Moral of the story?
moral of the story is that this is how you make, or like you get the money to grow, and then after it's growing, like you can protect it, and you like get to save your money, and it's not being taken away year after year, and so it goes up.
Yep. That's in a super, super, super simple form. That's exactly how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
No, I really like that quote though. Or what was it that you said? It was the shell or the vehicle makes it grow, and or what was it
Yep.
you said?
The
It
vehicle makes your money grow, and the shelter protects it.
vehicle makes your money grow, and the shelter protects it. All right, everybody, say that 3 times. I'll give you a couple seconds because I don't want to say it 3 times. It's like a tongue twister. I don't want to give you no more time. All right, thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Questions on that at all?
No, that made perfect sense.
Good. Good, good, good.